those that are in authority, from our commissioners to our councilmen. Help us to come together and put out our differences to make a difference, not just in this city, but in this great state. Look upon our county. Father, we ask that you would continue to move and protect us. Look upon our local law enforcement. And Father, we just thank you that you allow us to fulfill our destiny as well as manifest that you have destined us to be here on today. Father, we just thank you that you will continue to move and bless us, lead and guide us, that the generations that may follow behind us will have a blueprint to follow, that they will exceed the expectations that are set before them. This we ask in the benevolent name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Vach, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Roll?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. Preliminary matters, agenda additions, deletions, and adoption. I would suggest to council possibly, we need to put item number 1 and 3 in the same block of time. That's Mr. Wright and Mrs. Brundage. I would suggest that possibly if Mrs. Fry can keep her comments at 10 minutes, we start with that. I do think it's important the two subjects be together. If that's acceptable, that's a change.
So move that amendment. Second it.
Staff have no changes?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. It passes 5-0. We have proclamations. I have one here that's not on the agenda, but I'm going to read it, and then we'll get to the next two proclamations. This morning at 7 o'clock, really a heartfelt thing happened in that the family of Kevin Adorno, who was murdered really at the McDonald's on US 1 back some little time ago, is finishing his bicycle ride. He was riding from Maine to Miami, and of course it tragically ended here. A person that had mental problems attacked him for no apparent reason. His two brothers were here, his mother, father, his sister Tanya, and a great host of people. And I read this proclamation this morning, which I'll read in honor because I think it's something important that happened in the community. Whereas Mr. Kevin Adorno embodied the spirit of youthful enthusiasm, adventure, and camaraderie, and whereas over the course of 2 summers, Kevin Adorno had undertaken his dream to ride a bicycle from Maine to Miami, reminding family and friends of his motto, ride hard or go home, and whereas Kevin Adorno tragically lost his life while visiting Vero Beach, and whereas family and friends of Kevin Adorno have gathered in Vero Beach to memorialize his life and to complete his bicycle ride to Miami, and whereas Kevin's hometown of Farmington, Connecticut shares with Indian River County the national designation as a bicycle-friendly community, now therefore, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, we hereby proclaim August 18, 2015 as Kevin Adorno Memorial Day. In doing so, commend to Kevin's friends and families as they begin their bike journey from Vero Beach to Miami in celebration of Kevin's life. And maybe 10 seconds of silence would be appropriate because this is a terrible tragedy. Ms. Turner.
My pleasure to welcome representatives from the Daughters of the American Revolution and Children of the American Revolution to Council this morning. Karen Bauer and Barbara Deshers, if you'd like to come to the podium, and I'll read the proclamation and then welcome your comments afterwards. Whereas September the 17th, 2015 marks the 228th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. It is fitting and proper to recognize this document, its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating the week of September 17th as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach does hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained.
Thank you. The tradition of celebrating Constitution Week began in 1955 when the Daughters of the American Revolution actually petitioned Congress to set aside the 17th through the 23rd annually in observance of the United States Constitution. The observance was signed into public law by President Dwight Eisenhower. Since the United States Constitution is the basis just for our great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, I just want to thank everyone for helping us keep that tradition of celebrating Constitution Week, and it is very much appreciated, and thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Thank you, ladies. Proclamations for you? Please. And usually it's customary to shake council's hands.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
If you're brave enough to want your picture taken, what looks like do that too.
Well, I would love to have my picture taken with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, and shall we just...
A pleasure having you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work today.
All right, next on the agenda, Mr. Mencher, would you come forward, please?
Yes, good morning, Mayor and members of the council. Eric Mencher, your airport director. And I just wanted to pass on here some words from the Veterans Council. My other hat, as some of you may know, one of my volunteer activities in the community is the treasurer of the Veterans Council of Indian River County. So Tony Young, who's the president, could not be here, but the goal is to actually make a donation to the city. We're not asking for a proclamation or a photo op or anything. We just want to make sure we give something here back to the city. I think you all know about the history of the Veterans Memorial Island. Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary used to be called, when I was growing up here, just Memorial Island. But it's a beautiful addition to our city. You all know that. It started in 1964, actually, with former Mayor Alex McWilliam. And it's been kept up for many years by the City of Vero Beach. Hats off today goes to the Public Works Department. Don Dexter really has does the work to manage and make sure that the Memorial Island is upkept. And also, of course, we know Nanette Haynes, who does a lot to keep the landscaping there and puts a lot of work into that. These are city staff members that are also community members and love this community just as we all do. And they put a lot of effort to keep the Memorial Island up. The Lest We Forget Monument was dedicated years ago when the Memorial Island was actually founded, and over the years started to deteriorate. So the city was asked by the Veterans Council to, what can we do to keep it up, and the city stepped up to the plate. There's about $3,600 that was needed to bring the monument back up to speed and to make it look good, and that is underway. The Veterans Council board, of which I'm a member, it's about a 16-member board, decided to donate something back to the city to help with the cost of bringing that monument up to speed. So on behalf of the Veterans Council of Indian River County, it's 21 veteran organization members, 34 auxiliary members in the county, and 14,000 veterans in Indian River County. President Colonel Tony Young, U.S. Army retired, would like to thank the City Council and the City of Vero Beach for everything they've done to contribute to the restoration of the Lest We Forget monument. The donation of $1,000, I think Tammy's already got the check, so like I said, there's no presentation. We've already brought the donation, but that donation signifies the faith that the veterans share with the City of Vero Beach to recognize our veterans and to maintain our park, and also to make sure that our monument is in good condition. We hope that people will continue to visit Memorial Island, Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary, and just participate in some of the events that we have here. I think we have some of the biggest participation many counties ever see when they go out to Memorial Island, and we do all appreciate that. So thank you, City of Vero Beach, for remembering our veterans. Remember, we're all out here remembering you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Fry, would you come forward, please? And if you can live within 10 minutes, I would appreciate it. We have a very long meeting today.
I shall respect your request. Good morning. I'm Phil at 275 Date Palm Road. Good morning, Mayor Winger, council members, and staff. I'm here today to speak about transit-oriented development, something that's going to be one of the most major influences on our community. Driven by the $65 billion hedge fund Fortress, we found out the true purpose of All Aboard Florida. They haven't been exactly transparent, so we've been challenged to drill down and stay on this. At the recent University of Miami Commercial Real Estate Entrepreneurial Conference, Mr. Signorelli, who is the CEO and president of FECI, the sister company to All Aboard Florida, opened by saying, quote, "All Aboard Florida is a real estate play that will allow us to move our portfolios into urban areas and improve our assets under transit-oriented development." Transit-oriented development is the new buzzword. Florida East Coast Industries owns and operates Florida Development Group, one of the premier real estate developers in the state, owning 853 acres of land that can accommodate 16.1 million square feet of commercial and residential development, an additional 3,000 acres in its land bank, not yet entitled. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, working in conjunction with FEC and All Aboard Florida, expressed its support for transit-oriented development December 3rd, 2012, by Executive Director Michael Busha in a letter to the FRA, Federal Railway Administration. Quote, "The All Aboard Florida project will help encourage compact, mixed-use development and redevelopment that enhances the preferred form of infrastructure that encourages higher density and intensity of development," end quote. We wonder, preferred by whom? Under transit-oriented development, FEC and a few affiliated developers will manipulate and dominate the real estate market within 1/4 mile either side of the rail corridor from Miami to Cocoa to Orlando. Wesley Edens, the founder of the $65 billion Fortress Hedge Fund, parent to FECI, FEC, FECR, All Aboard Florida, and Florida Development Group, explained at the conference that their real estate plan is already being implemented in Miami through zoning changes that allow mixed-use development, increasing both population density and building heights. They demand that new codes require shops and retail to be built at the ground level with 600 square foot rental apartments above in the high-rise without any return to the taxpayer. Another feature of this plan includes the sale of air rights above the ground. They're also using transfer of development rights, where an ag and landowner or citrus grower can agree not to develop their land, but in fact they have the right to transfer those development rights into high-density urban areas. And Florida Development Group is bundling those TDRs into communities who consent to be a receiving area for high-density population inside the transit corridor. And so as we've witnessed, Fortress excels at procuring taxpayer money and converting it into profit for themselves. And one of these mechanisms is through public-private partnerships, a form of corporate welfare where the taxpayer pays for the project to benefit the private properties. Another method is through regional planning councils, who are the enablers who promote transit-oriented development and use government grants from HUD, DOT, and EPA to build transit villages, converting our taxpayer dollars into administrative fees for themselves. And what's toxic about this is that a handful of developers with their own architects who bring their own builders, their own construction crews, will control the future development. Demographic and ad valorem taxes, while the community loses its character in exchange for cookie-cutter high-density stack and packs. Private property taxes will be higher to pay for these developments. Tri-Rail has already asked Miami's mayor to raise property taxes to pay for their rail station. If Vero Beach begs for a station, we'll be paying for it just as we're paying for the crossing costs. So in Palm Beach, All Aboard Florida has already asked for a transfer of development rights. In Pompano, taxpayers are paying for a $1.1 million square foot stack and pack transit village, 408 rental units, requiring that 38% will be used for low-income dwellers. Developer Michael Massenoff, when asked if his financing for the plan, he wrote, "Yes, we have 51% from the largest banks." What he didn't mention is where the other 49% will be coming from. Cocoa Beach took the bait, and they end up having to change their city charter, relinquish control of existing local planning and zoning rights to comply with the visioning plan, and then that included 150 apartments at 650 square foot each, and an increase in building height, to 45 feet, and that's phase one. They do it in increments, so you've hardly noticed. Phase two and phase three will be coming along. So, once we exposed 750, as you recall, and voted it down, they went underground and let All Aboard Florida take center stage for the transportation arm of this real estate and how transportation package under transit-oriented development. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council website under urban design and town planning, the design charrettes, and we have one coming. It's the same old dog and pony show we saw in 2012, nothing new here, says master plans have been prepared, design guidelines, comprehensive plans, and traffic calming means new codes have been recommended, and assistance with implementation has been provided. In quote, translation, you'll relinquish control of your development rights. The regional planning contracts, the contracts are very clear. Quote, the executive committee will be the overall governing board, excluding elected officials, and will approve the overall work plan, recommend the selection of staff and consultants, provide policy direction for the regional vision blueprint, implementation plan, provide technical assistance, and develop a toolbox that will assist planners in modifying their local codes to embrace the vision elements, end quote. In other words, just sign for the grants, we'll take care of the rest. So when they come to town to sell us a transit village or an art village or a Potemkin village that is smart, green, walkable, bikeable, breathable, planet-saving with complete streets and ice cream-licking kitties with balloons, understand what's going on here. All the euphemisms are there, so when you go to it, but it's the same old cookie-cutter form of development for increasing density and changing your local planning and zoning. It's as though we didn't even have the ability to plan our own communities. This is the problem and the conflict I see here. In conclusion, I just want us to understand that they don't care about our living preferences. I think they've demonstrated clearly. Fortress has excelled at this in saying, we don't care about your agriculture. We don't care about your local planning. So This is all packaged up and very pretty. They'll come in with big screens. They'll have the public come and sit at little breakout tables and fill out little comment cards, and they'll give you little buttons to push to say, oh, I like that. It's green, it's walkable, it's bikeable, to make you think you're participating in this. And there's a long-term agenda here that's already been predetermined. So when you go to the design charrettes, understand that charrette is just another word for charade. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be taken in again. You didn't go for it in 2012, and I see no reason that we'll be going for it yet. I just want to conclude with a quote from the Wall Street Journal. Bullies know that the key to dominion is the first conciliatory act of submission. I thank you for your time today.
Before you leave,
Yes, sir.
There's a book that was written some time ago. It's called The Last Train to Paradise. I'm sure you read it. And it's the story. It's the story of Flagler's Railroad and his plan to. He was given free land all the way from St. Augustine to Key West.
Yes.
And the plan now is remarkably similar to the plan in 1893. It's just as bad as the one in 1893. I recently saw the reissued EDA. Thank you. Been up since very early this morning. And it seems to be a whitewash. I mean, Phyllis, what can we do about this whole thing to stop it? I mean.
Well, we now know that they're willing to lie in federal court, and I think that Dylan Reingold is the key person to answer your question over at City Council meeting today. He is providing more in-depth information about where this is going legally and how we are going to deal with the EIS and the permits. We know the governor just assigned a new person to, deal with the permits. So it's going to be a legal issue. We do have 2 in federal court, and there might be another one coming through the Florida judicial courts. So, and possibly a 4th with our historic society here, Vero man. Oh my goodness, they do not care about us. So if we can keep the feet to the fire, the FRA's feet to the fire on those requirements, and get it through the courts and hold them to the letter of the law. Otherwise, we are no longer a land of laws.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Concern. All right, we will move on to talking about the electric and Mr. Wright and Mrs. Brundage. I think it'll probably get merged. I would like to make a couple comments. First of all, I think Mr. Wright has something that's very good for the community for us in lowering power rates, and he will be presenting that, and I'm really excited about it. I don't know whether it's ever been noticed, but in February of 2014, we had one small power rate decrease, 1.1%. In June of 2014, we had one of 4.2. We're going to have another one of 1.5% or something in September, but I think what Mr. Wright is going to propose will give us major help and get the OUC portion of the power down to market. I put quotations marks around that because market is nebulous. The other thing I think as Mrs. Brundage comes forward, I think it's important for everyone to understand that there's a great deal of communication between Mr. Wright, the city manager, Mr. O'Connor, and on occasion myself, back and forth about any way we can conclude the sale of the electric and any other issues that come up. And these conversations are ongoing, and they end cordially. Sometimes we have a different point of view, as we did with OUC, but I think that's part of life. I guess I really want to speak to the people of Indian River Shores this morning because I think therein lies an issue. And what I want to say is we must treat all users the same. We cannot do a deal that disadvantages one group of ratepayers over another group any more than we can charge users in one area of the county higher rates than we charge users in another area of the county. And, I'm sure that the majority of the people in Indian River Shores understand this, and they don't desire special treatment. I wonder why they put a suit forward, but since it's there, I think we need to move forward and get that resolved. So I'd like Mr. Wright to come forward because I think he's got exciting news. I think the way we'll work this is he'll come forward with his news, and then we'll certainly be talking to Mr. Brundage, and then we're going to have to decide, because if we're going to have a power rate decrease, hopefully October 1st, we're going to have to make some decisions today, not final decisions, but we're going to have to give him guidance, and we're going to have to, be ready to pass material to the Finance and the Utility Commission. So, Mr. Wright, would you come forward, please, sir?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mayor, council members, citizens. I do have some additional stuff for y'all that it's not a lot, but
Anything would be certainly welcome, since all we've seen is a one-page summary. Yeah. Thank you.
okay. The big news is that we have agreed. Well, OUC has made us a really good offer, better than their last offer by, depending on how you're looking at it. Basically, properly interpreted, it on a present value basis, it's $7 million better than the last offer that they made to us in February. Key features are lower demand costs, fuel pricing remains the same. We would buy peaking energy from them that would enable us to shut down Big Blue sooner or later. The term would be shortened from the present remaining 14 years or 14 plus years through December 31st of 2029 down to through December 31st, 2023. This has a number of benefits. It would put us in the market then. Yes, there are risks in being in the market then. In light of the Clean Power Plan, probably the risks of being in the market, given that the market is likely to be able to respond to whatever the Clean Energy Plan, I misspoke. The market is likely to be able to respond to the Clean Energy Plan more efficiently and cost effectively than a utility system with fixed assets is probably, in my opinion, as I used to be economist, almost certainly a good thing all the way around. And as you all know from the not so pleasant exchange of correspondence that we shared with OUC from late June to mid-July, this resolves all issues. We won't have a third front of legal proceedings for which I, notwithstanding what lawyer jokes one might make, I personally am very grateful. I did not want a third litigation front war. And I'm on that front, I'm very happy. This is a good deal. It saves us $177 million nominal versus the present base case, which is to perform the existing contract to which we're obligated from now till December 31st of 2029. It saves us $126 million net present value. This is good. OUC has agreed that we may, the rates that are, I have to back up one step. The rates that are in there have an escalation trajectory similar to that, albeit always lower than, but similar to the escalation trajectory that's in the existing contract. They have agreed that we can adjust the capacity payments, remembering that the energy payments are going to remain the same. We can adjust the capacity payments over time to accomplish whatever rate-making goals we might want to accomplish in terms of flatter rates or a more attenuated escalation structure, as long as, reasonably enough, the present value of their capacity payments under the modified structure is approximately equal to the present value of the capacity payments under the rates shown in their term sheet. So the first thing you have is a term sheet. The second thing you have is just a summary sheet showing the bulk power supply costs of the base case versus the new offer here. And you've seen things in this format before. It's $177 plus $1 million net present value. Nominal value savings, and then the change in the present value of the cost is $126,037,000. The last thing you have, what I am recommending to you today, and I think with the city manager's support, is that you authorize us to conclude the definitive negotiations of an amended power purchase agreement, a single document, with OUC, the goal being to bring that back before you on September 1st. I know that my counterparts at OUC in the legal department there are already working on it. I'm sure I'll be working on it this week and next week, and we'll get it done. But our recommendation is you authorize us to move forward to negotiate the definitive agreement and to adjust the capacity rates in a manner that enables us to achieve a relatively flatter, attenuated escalation. The values shown on the graph that you have are numbers that work out on a present value basis as we have estimated it using OUC's discount rate. The red line is the base case. It shows what the all-in cost, and this includes the other system costs, the distribution, administrative and general, and so on. The all-in costs would be under the base case. The blue line shows, as you see, a flatter line with some increases, but they're modest. This is all in cost, so it starts at around $121 and increases to about $126.50 in 2023, which is an increase of like 0.5% a year over the entire period. One thing I was trying to do, this is what one might call the art of rate making, but one thing we were trying to do in this is to keep a good difference between where we would be otherwise and where we are now. We could tilt it more and get it even flatter, but if to get it flatter, you're going to have higher rates in the early years. To get a lower rate in the early years, you're going to have higher rates in the later years, or somewhere in between, or both. And it's just this looks good to us. This is subject to a few things. It's subject to vetting by OUC that we did the NPV calculation correctly. I'm highly confident in that. Vetting by our rate consultants that these translate the way they do, but we've been working them all along with indicative numbers, so I'm pretty confident in that. And finally, it does involve approval by FPL of the amendments to the contract. I don't see a problem there. The only real conflict between the OUC deal, in my opinion, and we've discussed this to some extent and with FPL and had correspondence on it, actually. The only real conflict between the existing asset purchase and sale agreement with FPL and the new OUC deal is that it would require us to shut down Big Blue, whereas the APSA with FPL requires us to keep Big Blue operational. I don't see a problem there. We have to work it out. There's one other feature that I forgot to mention of the new deal with OUC, and this is a brand new feature as of July 30th when we shook hands with them in Orlando, and that is that we will be able to start the base product purchase at the lower rates on October 1st, whether or not the full amount of transmission capacity is available to deliver the power from OUC to the city the peaking purchase. We're solid on the base, and we can get most of the peaking purchase here, like 31 megawatts out of the 54. But they've agreed we can start the lower rates effective October 1st, regardless whether the final transmission arrangements are in place. There's a provision that we've got 9 months to get it worked out. Ted Fletcher the OUC transmission planners and the FPL transmission planners are actively working on this. I knock wood, but the indications are that there should be operational measures to handle transmission without installing additional facilities while we wait for the additional facilities that have previously been talked about or installed. So,
I think it's worthwhile to talk about how we move forward and what the alternatives are. First of all, what we're talking about is taking the 2008 contract, which we're obligated to, and amending and restating it primarily in rates, which are here. And that's what Chef wants authority from City Council to do. The agreement isn't really to change the 2008 contract or not to have it. The agreement is to amend and restate it. As such, what happens is we would expect that there'd be a amended and restated agreement, which would go to the Joint Finance and Utilities Commission on August 31st and then come to City Council the following day. Our choices are rather simple. There isn't really in what's been worked out with OUC the ability to change this, that, and the other. Our choices really come down to one of three, and those are the only three that at least the commissions should consider. One is that we continue with the current rates, which are out of the marketplace, and I think that's worthy of comment. You know, when that contract was signed, at least it was the best offer that the city got in 2008 to replace the all requirements from FMPA and so on. What's happened in the country over this period of time is, first of all, there's lots more surplus power in the state of Florida. And, of course, the fracking revolution and the reduction in cost of gas, but now also coal. So what OUC is doing is stepping forward and giving us, and I put quotation marks around it again, market prices for their portion. Now, what still remains is we will be paying over market for FMPA for the 40% of the power they get from them. I want to go back to my three choices. My three choices are we can stay with what we have, which obviously I don't favor. We can go to war with OUC and have yet another legal problem and put out an RFP. I mean, the reality is until you put out an RFP and you get a bunch of responses, Mr. Richardson and Mr. Wright have done an extensive job of looking at all of the power contracts that have been worked on in the state of Florida for a protracted period of time. Are they absolutely right? Of course not. So the second choice is we pulled the RFP. Once we had an agreement, it made no sense to go forward with that. Or we can accept the contract that comes back. And I, of course, would favor that because we get the rate release we've been talking about. And quite frankly, we've been talking about rate release since February, not of this year, but the prior year. So I think with that amount of background, the choices are very simple, 1, 2, 3. What we'll be looking for is authorization from City Council for Mr. Wright and his team to finish out and bring back a complete restated agreement, which will be many pages long. I'll take questions from Council at this point, and then I think we need to talk to Mrs. Brundage and so on. So, Mrs. Turner, go ahead.
Certainly. I was going to say, I wouldn't buy a car with the information that I have. And you're asking us to commit to essentially $1 billion contract. Where is the analysis on the 85 megawatt demand? What actually is going on with the power plant? They're suggesting we close it, but then we have to buy our demand power, our peaking power from OUC at a price that will wipe out any savings that we could have. We're still stuck with the power plant with the employee pension and costs and benefits to liquidate, plus an existing site, building, other things to remediate. Yeah, no savings there at all. Let's take a look at our history with OUC. Orlando Utility operates Stanton 1 and 2, which is part of our FMPA entitlements. And their wholesale power costs that we get from them are some of the highest. I mean, $92 a megawatt, $81. This is close to the retail rates. In 2008, after we exited FMPA's all requirement project, we entered into a redacted contract that was kept secret from the public for 2 years. And an original contract, we still don't really know where it is. Then in 2013, we were trying to get out of FMPA. We had a letter of intent from Orlando Utility Commission that, yes, they would purchase our entitlements in FMPA, which they then reneged on. In June of this year, after Mr. Wright told us, oh, yeah, we've had this great relationship with them, and, he convinced the council to, let's go out for an RFP. And what did we get? We get a letter threatening litigation from Orlando Utility. I would say this contract deserves the utmost scrutiny. And to think that we're going to get this to our Finance Commission at the end of August and then have a vote on it September 1, I vehemently object to. This is your ratepayer money. This is looking at another long-term billion-dollar contract. Let's do this and with the data, with the full vetting, and with that information in front of us.
Mr. Wright, do you have any comment?
This contract is not going to be redacted. It's going to be made public as soon as possible. We'll give you the full analysis ASAP, and we're committed to transparency. This is an aside. This is not a billion-dollar contract. It's a billion-dollar power supply plan that includes all the purchases from FMPA from now through 2029, and it also includes the cost of market power from 2024 to 29. It's not a small contract. It's a 9 figures contract, but it's not $1 billion.
The other thing I would say about it, and I don't know that this number is completely accurate because I figured it yesterday, and there's in my head. But what we're talking about is a $750,000 saving for the ratepayers starting on top of the 1.5% starting October 1st. And I think $750,000 is rather important. And Mrs. Turner may want to get into a legal fight with OUC. I personally do not. So I think you get to a point where you need to do what you need to do, and we've committed to bring rates down. We have a contract with OUC, and it costs $50 million to get out of it. The other thing I'll say is, since I've been in City Council 2011, Mr. Kramer and I have been here side by side that time. We worked very hard to bring rates down, and they've been small. I will tell you the 2 city councils before were city councils that seemed to want to keep rates high. And, I personally think we have to do everything we can do to bring rates down. And you and I may differ on that. I mean, to put this off, and it'll take 90 days or 120 days or 6 more months, and we're passing up $750,000 a month. If that's the right number, quotation marks, I don't buy it.
Once again, Mr. Mayor, you are putting words in my mouth. I certainly not say we should go to litigation with OUC. What I'm saying is that you are entering into a major agreement, and to do this without full vetting and a full study is foolish. And I would say it would be even foolish to go forward with negotiation with OUC until you have a clear waiver from FPL. Otherwise, we're opening up ourselves again. All we have done in this electrical business is to pay attorneys to fight the county, to fight Indian River Shores, to make presentations to PSC, when the whole villain are stopping us from doing what the voters told us to do, which was to sell to FPL, is FMPA. why didn't we enlist the support of the county and Indian River Shores to go after FMPA, which, if we could sell to FPL, would give us the lowest rates within the state?
I have only one thing to say to you, Mrs. Turner. I am sure Mr. Wright, Mr. Richardson, Henry, and the rest of them will be happy to spend all the time you want so you can have every particular detail. And I intend to do the same. So there be it. I think what we should do, since we heard Florida Power and Light, do you comment, Mr.?
Yeah, I'm thinking that we're in a contract already, and what's happening is we're renegotiating the contract. We're reducing the contract in terms of years by 6 years, which is beneficial to us. We're getting a decrease in the rates, too, and we're also shutting down Big Blue, which are all things we didn't have before. We've already entered into buying the car, so to speak. We already have a contract, and now we're making the contract better. OUC is not without benefits. I mean, they get more business because as we shut down Big Blue, they have some more business. But they are doing lower rates in the shorter terms, and it's a benefit. I also agree that we ought to look at the contract. We ought to go through the contract until we are sure that the contract is something we can agree to sign. And we've made agreements to be able to do that. And he's being very transparent about letting us see every piece and answering every single question we can. And I think that we're on the right path. I think this is the best thing that we can do right now. The idea of going to war with them and trying to come up with maybe an RFP after we win the war, if we win the war, is not the right way to go. And staying with the contract we've got is not the right way to go. And I think this is the best of all three worlds, and this is the one we ought to be taking. So I agree in principle of going ahead and finishing off this contract and then getting into a state that we can look at it and understand it, and then agree if we do agree to go ahead and pass it.
Mr. Kramer, Mrs. Graves, either one of you?
Well, I've got to say this. I mean, is knocking 6 years off of the OUC contract a bad thing? I mean, isn't that what people want? 6 years off gets you 6 years closer to not having to pay a $50 million penalty. That's a bad thing. Getting lower power bills, that's a bad thing. I sat up here for 5 years, arguing this thing, and you get to a point where you can actually make some good, and everybody starts to argue the darn thing. We have a signed contract with FP&L. It's signed. It's done. Put the mechanics in place, make it happen. That's all you got to do. I've been telling everybody there's a problem with FMPA for a lot of years. And unfortunately, we had some transactional attorneys that just did not want to deal with them. We've got something here that lowers the rates, makes good, gets people closer to their FP&L deal by reducing the contract term. I don't see a problem.
Ms. Graves?
To me, this makes a tough situation better. I mean, we can keep going and not do anything. But this way, we're reducing the length of time, we're reducing the rates. And if we can vet it so that this is actually accurate, I just don't see what is bad about improving our current situation that we're stuck in.
Amy, would you like to come forward? And the chef, stay there.
Yes, sir.
Amy may want to ask you questions or whatever.
Okay.
And the public may want to address some issues.
Mrs. Brunges is on the agenda. She gets to speak first.
Good morning. Amy Brunges, External Affairs Manager, Florida Power and Light. And it really is, believe it or not, my pleasure to be back before you again this morning. It's been a while, and while I am here to talk about the purchase, and while I am here to talk about an offer to purchase the customers in Indian River Shores, I need to state at the outset that FPL believes today, as I stand here, as we've always believed, that the best solution for all of us is for FPL to purchase the entire City of Vero Beach electric system. We have considered ourselves to be partners with the City of Vero Beach for many years. And in fact, Mayor Winger just told me recently we're going to be partners in some form or fashion for many years to come. So today is just another step in our partnership. As you all know, last week FPL presented the City of Vero Beach with an offer to purchase the customers of the town of Indian River Shores. The details are outlined in the letter, which I'm hopeful you all read, and I'll definitely do my best to answer any questions you may have regarding that written offer today. But I'm here this morning to ask you to direct your legal team and Jim O'Connor to begin a dialogue with us to see if we can make this work. You know, obviously, we know you're considering renegotiating the contract with OUC, and this offer to purchase the customers of Indian River Shores is in no way an effort to stand in the way of that. We believe a sale of the Indian River Shores customers can work in tandem with any contract that you enter into, and that's just another reason for us to have a dialogue and a discussion to see how we can make that work. In May, we met with Mayor Winger, Mr. Wright, and Jim O'Connor to discuss the parameters of a potential purchase of the Indian River Shores customers by FPL. After that meeting, we began to analyze all the available information that we had, and we did put together what we believe, based on the data that was available to us, a fair offer that provides benefits to all parties. Based on the data we have available to us, we believe a partial sale of the Indian River Shores customers is achievable without negatively impacting the city's remaining electric customers, and most importantly, without the need of approval from FMPA. But since we sent you our letter last week in writing, we've been made aware that many of you sitting up there today feel that our offer is not enough to protect the city's remaining ratepayers, and we would like very much to understand your analysis as to how you've come to this conclusion. If you have a number in mind, that in and of itself is a reason to meet and discuss. Only in that setting can we determine if we really are that far apart or not. At the same time, we would really like to share with you more particulars about how we've arrived at our offer based on the information we had, and the additional $25,000 a month for about 2 years until all the transmission upgrades are complete. We've done our best to bring as much value to the city as we can based on the information we have and based on market value, but at the same time, you should know by now that FPL is always looking for ways to get to a positive result. We really want to hear your concerns in a private setting. We want to partner with you, as we have been trying to do for years, to try to figure this out. And so is my request today that you, as a council, direct your staff to meet with us and begin some discussions. We understand your feelings and your belief that the offer you have in front of you is not sufficient. We believe it is, but there's hasn't been enough communication between us to really see if we can work this out. So that's my request today, and I'll certainly try to answer any questions.
Jeff, do you have comment on that, or Mr. O'Connor, either one?
I'm ready, willing, and able to sit down and talk with FPL further about this.
Jim, do you have any comment?
My comment is that I basically talk to Amy on a pretty regular basis, and this is just
like
give us
hourly
a dialogue. So yes, at any time.
I think we need to make this clear, and I would probably be part of those conversations, as I have been many times. And we've obviously, Amy and I have talked, and others that have talked, and I've talked to others at Florida Power and Light, and Chef and Jimmy even more so. The point I'd like to make from the city's point of view is we have been and are always willing to talk about anything as long as it comes out for the benefit of all the ratepayers. And I think we should continue our conversation. I think we should continue our conversation on what came forward last week on August 12th. And I think it's time we got back together again and talked about any new ideas we have in selling the entire electric company, because the reality is, when you look at Chef's chart, if we only had OUC and we had our system, which is small and condensed and efficient, we could be competitive. But the problem is we have FMPA, and we need to find a solution to that. And of course, the best solution is to find a solution to FMPA and sell the entire utility. It hasn't changed. So I think that needs to be talked about. We haven't found a solution. There's got to be one someplace. So I personally would think further conversations are up to you and Chef to schedule, or you and Jim.
Okay, then we'd like to do that today while we're all together. When we're all done here, we'll try to set some dates and get those discussions started. We appreciate that. We agree that We have done a lot in what we have thought we could do to get you out of the FMPA contracts. Having you as part of that team most certainly and potentially could make a difference, a big difference. At the same time, we want to talk about how the sale of the customers and to us of the Indian River Shores customers can work in tandem with what you're doing to lower your rates, and how we can make that work without negatively impacting your other customers, and just see what the best solution is. And those we look forward to those discussions as soon as possible.
Questions from council for Amy? I think she's been very clear. She wants to talk about it. That's a good idea.
Okay, we appreciate that, and we'll get that scheduled. Thank you.
Anyone have any comments to you, Jim?
Amy, if you don't mind, since we'll probably be up here before the meet, when you and Chef can set whatever the times.
My calendar is open, so I.
And those discussions would be between FPL and the City of Vero Beach, just to make that clear, too.
Yes, just the two of us.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Wright, do you have further before I open public comment? Mrs. Turner?
I don't have anything further. I'm on everything I presented, and I'm good on the request from FPL. I think maybe I'll sit back down, but I'm not going far.
Okay, well, I think to make very clear, this whole process of getting a better deal from OUC is completely transparent, and we will have a restated original agreement, and that'll be open to everyone. And I don't know what more to say. I mean, it may be that for one reason or another it fails and we don't have it on August 30th for the commissions. I mean, you simply don't know, but he's got the ball. Well, neither Jim or I can do anything.
Just one question. Why can't somebody from the shores be involved in this? I mean, it's just explicitly stated that it's between the City of Vero Beach and FPL only. Why wouldn't the shores be involved?
You're talking about Amy Brunge's discussions with FPL. I certainly think you should be able to welcome Indian River Shores. I'd agree with you.
The issue really is the working out of the details between two utilities. I'm not sure we would ever get to a conclusion, because we're going to be talking about technical issues that are involving, for example, the transmission and use of facilities during a transitional period.
No, but if we're talking about a possible, or sale of our assets in Indian River Shores, why wouldn't we why wouldn't we welcome to have Indian River Shores representative if they wanted to be in those discussions as well, Mr. O'Connor?
Well, we'll open it up, I guess, is the way the discussion would have to go.
No,
please.
to the public, but I thought if they have an interest in participating.
Yeah. It's a good question, Jay. Thank you for bringing that up. We are okay with having Indian River Shores as part of the discussion, but we understood it was the wish of the city right now that we start the initial discussions between us. We were fine with that. At some point in the process, Indian River Shores would need to be brought in to any discussion about them becoming FPL customers. But initially, as we've just agreed to talk about not only Indian River Shores, but our purchase and sale agreement and where we go, those initial discussions, at the city's request would be between FPL and the city. At some point, though, the shores would obviously need to be brought in.
And I agree with that, obviously, when the transaction, if we get to an agreement. But if we're going to open it up to Indian River Shores, I think it should be a public meeting for anyone who wants to participate.
And we don't think anything will get accomplished. We really need to sit down with you and really understand your concerns, your issues, your number, and see what we can do to make it work.
All right. Further council comment?
Just one comment before we open it for public comment. For the public, I want y'all to understand that this new Orlando Utility Commission contract requires us to buy a minimum base load, a guaranteed base load. But this is a new provision that we don't have in the existing contract. So the reason that possibly negotiating a sale of Indian River Shores at this time would obviously modify that base number and change the numbers. So,
No, that's an absolutely accurate comment. Okay, Mr. Mucher, your comment, please.
Mark Mucher, 617 Indian Lilac Road. Pilar, thanks for stealing my thunder. That was going to be my question. I have requested all correspondence and documentation on this matter, and I've received nothing, so I wouldn't have known that. But that was going to be my question. Is it take or pay, and how's that going to work out with or without the Shores sale? I also wanted to make a comment. I've heard the same things in the press and on the radio that Amy mentioned, that several of you think that this number's not a big enough number, and also that if we do make this sale, then everybody else is going to have to pay more. And I don't know, what qualifies any of us to say 13 million is not enough, especially when you haven't sat down and heard the explanation of where that number came from, and or an analysis that as to whether it would affect the rest of us ratepayers, or where that, how much good that $13 million could do us. So that's just a comment, but I would like to hear how that take or pay thing is going to work. Thanks.
Mr. Mucher, I've seen the data, but the data does exist, and it will be shown to Florida Power and Light. I mean, it's rather critical. And
I also assume then if it exists, it's public information, and I'd like to see it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Faraday.
Dr. Stephen Faraday, 2120 Captain's Walk, Indian River County. I'm trying to divide this into two different parts because of Mr. Wright's presentation. First, with regard to the FPL offer, I think FPL is volunteering to take this to FERC. They've already gotten the full sale through and approved previously. Previously, Councilman Kramer objected to FERC and was supporting a partial sale. This should overcome that particular objection. Also, FPL states will propose to PSC change in the territorial agreement. It has standing, unlike the county. Also, if the city supports that change, then the PSC is hard-pressed not to go along with that type of change. Also, they would take it out of the courts, so PSC wouldn't have to go in and try to be concerned about the courts changing a territorial agreement. This is also a decision that is under the control of the city, because the Shores accounts for about 8% of the city's customers. The FMPA contracts provide that if all or a significant part of a muni's electric utility is sold, that significant part is defined in case law as 75%. So therefore, it's within that range, so the control is totally within the city council without having to go to FMPA, get concurrence of that. Also, the 8% also falls within the range of the 10% IRS tests regarding the sale of municipal bond-funded projects to the private sector. So it would still be within that particular range too, and it would meet the IRS tests. I would suggest that with the funds that are used, that first, some of the funds be used to reduce proportionately the outstanding electric system debt for the Shores portion to maintain the debt-to-customer ratio. This is a common practice in the private sector. This also avoids the lawsuits because you've reduced the liabilities appropriately. Then it gives you the opportunity to pay out pension debts, et cetera, because you've also got a $46 million bill coming in from FMPA next year for getting out of the ARP project. I think at this particular time it would be best not to proceed with the OEC contract. To use an oxymoron, this is deja vu all over again with regard to April 2008. Push forward, get the contract done with OUC in 2 weeks, and don't give the public information. All of these various types of things, which are supposed to be crammed down our throats. I wrote down a number of issues. All of this stuff about rates, cut to the chase. what is the rate reduction we're going to have from the 28% that exists right now? Tell me what the number is. You say it's a 3/4% reduction. Is that per month, Dick? Or is that per year? $750,000 a month or per year?
A preliminary was that it was in the range of, it's not absolutely accurate, $750,000 a month.
A month, okay. So give us a breakdown and what that reduction is from the current 28% down to what it's supposed to be of 23% or whatever. That means we're still 23% higher. The September 1 presentation date for a decision by you is absolutely absurd. To get into it and look at this, what's the minimum that's required to be purchased now? Is that realistic? Does it take into account, as Councilman Turner said, any type of adjustment for a sale? Are you going to be constraining yourself for that? Playing with the rates to solve the objective for the present objections to the rates of the city may not be the best thing for the long term. In addition, we need to have the comparison that was done before between the original contract, the prior proposal, and this new proposal for that to be analyzed. Because what was occurring before was the city was having to give OUC a valuable right, which is the oil and gas pipeline. That is more valuable now because of the EPA Obama administration stricter coal requirements. Also, you're required to give first right of purchase to the city's St. Lucie interest. Those are valuable things. So don't just focus on the rates. You've got to focus on these other particular assets. And I like the nice terms you're using, amended and restated. In effect, it's a new contract. It's a replacement contract, as best I can understand. My support for this is no, because we don't have enough details, and it's deja vu all over again. Thank you.
Next gentleman, come forward, sir.
Mayor Winger and City Council, you too, Jim. Good morning to you also.
Thank you, Jerry.
For the record, my name is Jerry White, and I'm the Vice Mayor of the town of Indian River Shores. I know you all received the letter from Mayor Brian Barefoot. Am I correct? Everybody read it? Thank you. Regarding FP&L's offer to purchase the utility system in our town. So I'll keep my comments brief. And without belaboring the point, we believe there are at least 5 key reasons why you and your constituents should see this as a win-win for all of us. First, this is a real offer. You asked for an offer, this is it. And it should be taken seriously. The initial cash offer is $13 million. We feel is significant. Second, we believe the FP&L's proposal would protect the city's remaining customers. Our rate consultant says that at the city's current cost of debt of $13 million would replace the quote-unquote lost contribution from the town customers for at least 73 years, depending on interest rates. And that's just FP&L's initial offer. Third, we see no reason why the city couldn't renegotiate its wholesale power agreements at the same time it is negotiating a partial sale to us. In fact, we believe the partial sale, together with the negotiations you have underway with OUC, offers a real opportunity for long-term rate relief for your remaining customers. Fourth, I'm sure you've heard of the old saying, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. We believe that this may be the best opportunity for our municipalities and our taxpayers to avoid the financial risk of continued litigation. Fifth and finally, we believe the FP&L offer, at the very least, presents a real opportunity for both of our municipalities to sit down with FP&L in good faith and try to work this out. Again, we would respectfully ask that you give FP&L's offer serious consideration, and thank you for your time. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next gentleman.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Bob Alwater, and I'm an Indian River representative on the Vero Beach Utility Commission. Just by way of background, prior to my retirement, I had a 35-year career in the bond markets, including running the largest municipal bond fund group in the United States for the Vanguard Group. So I think I know a little bit about municipal finance. Currently right now, Florida Power and Light has put on the table what to me appears to be a very fair offer to buy the Vero Beach electric assets and customer base that sits in the town of Indian River Shores. And the city has received an analysis that shows the cash from Florida's P&L's initial offer would replace, quote, the lost contribution from Indian River Shores, assuming an interest rate of 4.11%, which is the city's current cost of debt, for 72.9 years. That's a fairly long amount of time. Based on this analysis and other factors, I believe it's your duty to the taxpayers as well as the electric customers to enter into serious negotiations with Florida Power and Light. And I think there's another factor that you need to consider as well. The value of Florida P&L's offer is based in part on the present value of any future profits that they will earn from the Indian River Shores customers. And if the city loses its current lawsuit with the town of Indian River Shores, it will no longer have the right to deliver the electricity to Indian River Shores customers. So then any subsequent offer to buy all or part of the Vero Beach Electric will be negatively impacted by the loss of part of its customer base. So getting this deal done now takes that risk off the table. Negotiations with FP&L can go on in conjunction with the city's current talks with the Orlando Utilities Commission. And it was noted up here that these contracts are going to be reviewed with the Utility Commission. I would ask you to direct Mr. Wright to send us the contract, send the members a contract far enough in advance of the meeting that we have sufficient time to do analysis and to for the members to prepare questions and facilitate the discussion. I'd say let's get to the right deal, not the fastest deal. So thank you for your
You do understand when it comes to your commission, the question will be, you have the right to answer any questions you want, but the fundamental question will be yes or no.
Right, but to facilitate that analysis and to understand it, we need to get the contract in advance to understand all that.
I'm sure you'll have a copy when Ms. Turner and I have a copy.
Okay.
Well, I certainly thank you very much for your comments. I think you made a good point too that if if council says they're going to wait through litigation on Indian River Shores, that we certainly would get a lesser deal than what may be pro-offer now. That we're in our much stronger negotiating positions with FPL for the sale of Indian River Shores. And your comment about getting the contract in advance kind of hit me because I remember the Finance Commission back in 2008 received the copies of the OUC contract at 10 o'clock at night, delivered by Vero Beach Police for a 9 o'clock meeting to review it. And that is the truth. So I certainly would hope that we will do a redacted contract at that. So.
At the Utility Commission meeting last week, Mr. Wright mentioned that there was a contract in place but had absolutely no details to provide us.
Yeah,
so
or any backup, any material
difficult
for you to
to make
at.
a decision.
Yeah,
so.
Or for you to actually see what the demand charge was, what the details of it.
Yeah.
And it's in the details. Right. Thank you very much.
Yes, next gentleman.
Good morning. Lang Sykes, 836 Riamar Drive, Vero Beach. Mayor Winger, council members, two subjects I'd like to make comments on. First, to the earlier topic, I have a deep respect for our unique community and this quality of life that we have here. And the project, All Aboard Florida, is already damaging our real estate values, especially those near the tracks. And I think the thing that I like least about this supposedly private project is that All Aboard Florida is taking taxpayer-funded subsidy, and they're going to use the money to ruin our quality of life. To Ms. Frey's point, I think the reason they don't want to move the tracks west is that there's no market for these high-rise developments out west. And this project really could ruin the Treasure Coast. We can't buy this baloney that this is a dead deal and we must continue to fight All Aboard Florida and keep them out of our community. With regard to the offer from FP&L, it appears to me at this point that the offer is a win-win for the city of Vero Beach and for Indian River Shores. This could end a lawsuit with a neighbor, and if properly allocated, could relieve Vero Beach City budget shortfalls. The city has an opportunity now here to negotiate a deal that would offer relief to ratepayers. And I think it's prudent to keep in mind that in little over a year, Indian River Shores can walk anyway, and then the city is shouldering a large opportunity cost for not having negotiated a deal with FP&L at this present time. So I'd encourage the council to negotiate a deal, look for solutions, but ultimately for a full sale. And I think the members of our community deserve decisions made in their best interest, and I believe we can accomplish that goal by working together. So let's please resist the urge to make this a political fight and do what's best for all concerned parties. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sykes, I certainly agree with you on the railroad, and I certainly agree with you on the complete sale. I would like to ask you a question. If because of the FMPA power, the remaining customers of Vero Beach had to pay a premium over the next number of years, would you go for that? I mean, I personally won't go for that. But would you go for it? In other words, would you want the people of Vero Beach and unincorporated area to pay a higher price? I mean, the question is germane. You're making the assumption that $13 million is a good number, and it's not.
Mayor Winger, thank you for your question. I simply stated we should negotiate a deal. We have an opportunity
Thank you for
here.
your answer.
So regardless of whether or not you think the 13 is the right number, we're in a good position, and I think that it's important that we take care of all the ratepayers.
Yeah, so you would agree with us, the position that at least I'm taking, that it's important that anything that the city ever do be neutral to all customers. You agree with that?
I'm not agreeing with that. I'm saying that I think that we need to work to negotiate a proper deal that ultimately takes care of everyone in our community.
But equally. In other words, would you be willing to charge the working people of Vero Beach more so you could charge somebody
the working
else less?
people of Vero Beach are who I'm interested in fighting for, and that's why I'm up here as a citizen making this comment. So thank you.
Good morning, Paul Tanner. Got to remember my address since I moved 5766 9th Street Southwest. I took really the time to take a look at a few bios, city council members and others, in preparing myself for whatever comment I might make. And I found it very interesting that Mr. Winger respectfully earned a master's degree in English at Cleveland State University. I also looked at Mr. Deason's record. He earned a master at Florida State in the practice of accounting. And to be fair, it would take an hour to list this man's credentials in the art of accounting and also critical analysis. So when a man like Mr. Deason makes a comment which I believe is conservative, calling the deal certainly of the magnitude which would merit careful consideration and evaluation, by what possible authority does any city council member seek to deride or to diminish the possible deal of a sale to FP&L? I think it is ludicrous and shameful, especially as I look back and watch some of your campaign videos and I read some of the comments in the press that were made. Some of you folks were elected on the platform to get this deal done, and you've gotten into power and you've turned.
It is done. It's signed. It's done.
I was under the assumption that we were supposed to address council generally and that we were not supposed to get into an exchange back and forth with council, and that's what I'm doing. You can take your shots when I leave the podium if you'd like. I'm going to make my comments, and then I'm going to walk away. Unless you haven't noticed, the residents of Indian River County do not want government ruling their electric utility, and they do want free market solutions provided by FP&L. That is a fact. I did find an interesting credential in Mr. Winger's bio that I thought was worthy of noting. He stated that he had experience with the State Department Job Corps in Poland, assisting a Polish company making the transition from communism to free markets. I find that ironic. And I think I speak for the members of Indian River County, the residents, the ratepayers, some of which are being held hostage. My wife's store is one of them, and I find it very troubling. But I think I speak for the members of Indian River County when I say we wish we had that Dick Winger as mayor.
You know what? I'd like to correct you in just one point. My undergraduate degree is in theoretical economics. So just...
I stated correctly from your website, you received a master's in English.
Degree, yeah.
And once again, I address the General Counsel, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Peter Gorey, 2421 Granada Avenue in Vero Beach. I'm the chairman of the Finance Commission. I would just want to make one point in terms of the customers of Indian River Shores. There are 3,500 customers in Indian River Shores, 200 of whom are business, and 3,300 are residents. There are 28,000 total residence customers. So Indian River Shores is not 8% of the total, because there are 6,800 business customers, 200 of whom, or 3%, are in. But let's look at residents. If, in fact, 33 out of 28,000 customers, and the average bill in the Shores is higher than the total average bill, therefore losing those customers is then have to make up that difference in terms of loss of revenue. That's my only point.
Next gentleman.
Morning, Council. Harry Howe, 765 Broadway Street, Vero Beach, Florida, 32960. I feel like we've gone from a complete sale to a partial sale to no sale to now a new contract. And so just as a citizen of Vero Beach, I had a few thoughts that I wanted to make here, and some of them have already been made. I'll try to skip over those if I can. But most importantly is that we have benefits liabilities out there that are outstanding, and we don't know exactly how we're going to tackle those moving forward yet. I think we have a $3 million shortfall, approximately. I probably shouldn't get into specific numbers, but approximately a $3 million shortfall every year from utility transfers in funding those liabilities, the OPEB liabilities. We also, I think, could use this $13 million to offset the loss that we may see from the lost payers in Indian River Shores if we allow this deal to go through, or if it were able to go through, I should say. If Big Blue is, in fact, deconstructed, again, specific numbers, but it's my understanding that we would have a surplus in of $4.6 million that's normally spent on keeping Big Blue running. The loss of power not being used by Indian River Shores, I don't know if it's an option, but perhaps OUC could buy back some of that unused energy. That's kind of out there, I know, but somebody would know better than I would. We could stop with the lawsuit, which is costing us money. We could respectfully send Mr. Wright home and stop the hundreds of dollars an hour that we pay him. Jay Kramer's said in the past on the record that he would like a partial sale. He could get that wish for sure. It was mentioned back before we started talking about this deal, Mayor Winger, it was mentioned that any deal with FP&L at that time could potentially raise our rates significantly. And I think if my thought process is correct, the $13 million might make it as though it could be negated, or even better, maybe we could keep the rates lower. Okay. There's a gentleman out there by the name of Professor Milton Friedman. There's 4 rules of spending that this guy has, and the worst of which is spending someone else's money on somebody else. And this is what happens when you do not economize and you don't seek for the highest available value. And I feel like that's kind of where we're headed if we're not already there. We're basically taking someone else's money, we're not finding the best value, and we're giving that money to someone else, namely right now the FMPA. And finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, it was mentioned it's possible that within 400 days, Indian River Shores could walk. The $13 million is off the table. The possibility of helping us with our retirement liabilities is gone. The cost to continue the lawsuit we have in place will still be there. The cost for Mr. Wright will still be there. And we're left with essentially nothing. And at that point, the only obligation FP&O would have, if there's a judgment as such, it would be to buy the assets at book value, which is significantly less than $13 million. And I know it was the gentleman that was just here before, it was mentioned, if you forget what I think altogether, as the gentleman before me mentioned, Terry Deason has an impeccable and outstanding resume. Some of the things he was involved with, Florida Public Service Commission Chairman, Florida Public Service Commission Executive Assistant to the Commissioner. It really goes on, and I won't bore you because I know you've seen the paperwork. He has outlined that he thinks this is a bona fide deal and that it's a great option for us. So certainly consider all of these things when making a decision. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fry.
Hello again. Phyllis Fry, 275 Date Palm Road, and now for something a little different. Housing and Urban Development's new Secretary Julian Castro recently announced finalization of the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule, and it gives the federal government the lever it needs to re-engineer American neighborhoods by imposing densification in housing. Here again is the common thread. Transportation and business development. This new law casts aside or weakens the authority of local governments over our core responsibilities, such as zoning, transportation, and education. Not being able to afford a home in the suburb is not an example of discrimination. However, AFFH uses race and ethnicity to force integration by class to densify development in American neighborhoods and undo America's system of local government to replace it with a regional alternative. We've already seen this attempted by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council in support of 750. I have the report with me, but the Social Equity Analysis and Opportunity Index report for the 7 counties of Southeast Florida, Part 2, page 30, spells it out. It shows that Indian River County, for example, due to our small population, scores very high on the Opportunity Index. For densification, starting with Indian River Shores, onward to Wabasso Beach, including the Barrier Islands south into northern St. Lucie County, where the focus is on a list of residential tracts, including PGA Village and Country Club and 2 state parks on Hutchinson Island. Statistically, Indian River County has the highest disparity of income in the state of Florida, so we're on the radar. This rezoning and densification was first introduced by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council through 750 and a $4.2 million HUD grant, as you will recall, which we promptly said no to, very wisely, but their plan for densification is back and further enforced by Fortress's subsidiaries, development groups, as I mentioned earlier. It all ties in. So understand that the common thread here is to change planning and zoning to further population densification. We ask that you consider this on these influences from our outside area as we seek to control the future development of our own community. Let's keep it local and keep Vero Vero. Thank you again.
Ma'am, come forward, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Stephanie Austin, 6250 Arrowhead Lane, Vero Beach. I want to, from the outset, say that I believe in the arts. I'm all for the promotion of the arts. I have made my life's career in arts as both a teacher at the University of Michigan Children's Psychiatric Hospital and as an interior designer in Tampa. I find it both disturbing and concerning, however, that almost immediately after our county voted to exit 750, a transit village or art village was in the works, according to the Press Journal. Vero Beach and Sebastian have been on the 750 transit development map since day one. And here's the map, and I've been carrying it around. I took it to one of Ken Dagg's meetings, and I have a copy for each of you. Nationwide, the plan is to shift and manipulate, shift, and densify cities, and one method is the promotion of transit-oriented development. The South Florida Business Journal, and I urge you to join there. They have a free service that it tells about the massive amounts of transit-oriented development. It's just epic. In 2013, I read a Twitter message from New Urbanist Planners and 750 Consultants, Dover, Cole & Partners, and they were just awarded the redesign of Cocoa Beach. And this is their quote from Twitter. The 750 change is about steering where the next 3.1 million people will live, unquote. Now, Commissioner Haddock in Martin County, he has already disputed those population numbers. And frankly, steering of any population is immoral and unconstitutional. And I think it was Mrs. Turner, you said that once a freedom is lost, may never be regained. I've also been following similar programs around the nation, and some of these densification plans are quite shocking. The Pacific Legal Foundation, and they do have an office in Martin County, and they have been to some of the 750 meetings, reports that the regional strategy and goal for San Francisco area is to squeeze 78% of new housing and 60% of new jobs into priority development areas on 5% of the land mass over the next 2 decades. And that's just one example. But this is going on all over the country. And just the other day I was reading about the Art Village in Anaheim next to their empty loft apartments. And in our own area last September, the citizens of Fort Pierce packed City Hall to oppose Mosaic Development's proposed 355-unit transit rental housing project right next to the tracks. And I wonder if there would have been so much opposition if this too was called an art village. I am all for any redevelopment of Vero Beach if this is a free market endeavor using our own zoning rules. Any direct or indirect grant funding will transfer rights to unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. And I'm going to leave you with a final quote. If you haven't seen it already, you may contact me and I can send you the link, but Andre Dewani's full 2-hour lecture to the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is on YouTube. It was filmed by Martin County, and we received it by FOIA request. It was never aired on government TV. But this is his quote from the father of new urbanism. He says, "We don't need to have more public meetings like this. We should just finish the thing and pass it. Just pass it and trust us," unquote. He further stated that we've got to transcend the local. And that's, I don't know, it has stuck with me all of these years. It was about 3 years ago that he made those infamous statements. But I remind you all that in Vero Beach, we include the local. Thank you. And I have a copy of the article from Fort Pierce and the map, if I may give it to you.
You can give it to the city clerk, and she'll pass it out to us. The same with the maps, too.
Thank you, sir.
Next lady, please come forward, identify yourself and so on.
Good morning. My name is Lee Regan, 3207 Anthem Way, Vero Beach. I live in Trillium, which is in the county. I think I can speak for almost 100% of the Trillium residents, which is over 260-something, I believe. I was here when the OUC contract was read, the first contract. So were you, Mayor Winger, I believe. You were on the Electric Commission at that time?
I was not. I had nothing to do with the OUC contract. And it should never have been signed, but go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with that. At this time, you have just said that on your new OUC discussion that the outside residents would be apprised and be hearing it. We heard the redacted version. We never, ever heard, and I was sitting there, my ears were better at that time than they are now, 8 years later or whatever. We never heard the 20 million get out of it fine. That wasn't in there, as I recall. I'm here to urge you to take your time with it, to really let the county be in, because we're ratepayers. You say we're responsible for the debt if we get sold. Well, then we're also responsible for listening to what you're doing as far as a new contract. Could it be possible that they might add new strings to it? I'd ask you, you're serious people, and I think you're very serious that you might do that for us. And I'm begging you to pay attention and not rush into anything. I'm also asking you to please approve the sale to Vero Shores to FPL. And thank you. Any questions?
The only comment is that Mr. Wright will be looking very carefully and apprising us of any potential strings.
I'm so happy to hear that, because it didn't happen before in so many years.
That's
gone
his
by.
job. He's a different lawyer than
I haven't
before.
been here recently because I'm tired. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reagan.
Mr. Wilson?
Good morning, Council. Charlie Wilson. I just bought a house, 3815 7th Lane, and you'll be pleased to know that I'm not eligible to run for the City Council. My office, however, remains at 2001 9th Avenue in Vero Beach, and I still remain deeply involved in Vero Beach. A friend of mine came up the other day and said, Charlie, when you were running for City Council last year, somebody from the IRNA told me that if I voted for Charlie Wilson, I'd get higher taxes, I'd get multiple lawsuits, and there would be no electric sale. And he says, sure enough, I voted for you, and I have higher taxes, multiple lawsuits, and the electric sale has failed. So they were absolutely right. Here we are again. If you'll remember, I was the one sitting at that chair right there, and I'm the one that discovered the discrepancies in the contract. The contract with OUC was a fraud. We should have investigated further. I came and asked this council to investigate further, and you decided not to do so. Here we are negotiating another multi-million-dollar contract. John Kerry is a better negotiator than the city of Vero Beach. Okay. The Indians who sold Manhattan got a better deal than we've been able to work out with the city of Vero Beach. Mr. Winger has outlined what he says are the three options that we have available, all of them bad. I want to remind you the reason that we have three bad options is because we killed the only good option. On March the 5th, three of you, Mr. Winger, Mr. Kramer, and Ms. Graves, voted to kill the sale to Vero Electric. You can change it all you want to. Look at the tape. We sat here and hung our heads because we knew exactly what was happening. We knew.
Charlie, that's not true.
It is absolutely true.
I'm sorry, it's not.
It is absolutely true, sir.
No,
now,
it's not true.
It's his.
But go ahead.
We have been defending the FMPA so long, we have become the FMPA. Every argument you're using to not agree to the sale at Indian River Shores is exactly the argument that FMPA uses to not make a deal with you. You have become so close to the FMPA, you are the FMPA. This is like the Vichy French. We are so closely attached to the FMPA, including nothing personal, not personal, but our learned lawyer. The reason we have our learned lawyer is because the FMPA didn't like the lawyer we had. So through George Christopher, we got a new lawyer. That's more acceptable to the FMPA.
That's not accurate either.
Well, you have the bully pulpit. People chose to trust you.
Mr. Mayor,
but go ahead. But
we have a long list. We have a long list of lawyers. We have a long list of deals. Over the years, for the last 35 years, we've gotten into one deal after another. Every single one of them included a lawyer standing here telling you this is a really good deal. Every single one of them. Not one single deal that we've made that got us here had a lawyer standing here and say, y'all really shouldn't do this. Yeah. Every single deal that got us here had a lawyer, had a staff member, and had a city council that went along. Those of us who are here to try and do something about the electric sale, frankly, are too late. You have enough votes that you're going to do whatever it is you want to do, despite whatever you say. You've been able to fool people long enough. Yeah. So the question Mr. Winger kept asking was, would you support a deal that had two different rates? Well, two things. First, the city used to have two different rates. They charged a surcharge to the county. They did it for years. Ratepayers for I don't know how many years paid a higher rate because they were in the county. Mr. Old has been quoted as saying that his responsibility is to the city of Vero Beach residents. You also sit as an electric board. You have responsibilities to every single ratepayer. That's like saying, I work for a bank and my only responsibility is the shareholders. I don't have any responsibility to the depositors. To heck with them. They're just little old customers. Who cares about them? So if you're here to do something about the electric rates, you're probably too late to do it. Mr. Kramer may be able to, he has 4 votes, so he may be able to do something with Indian River Shores. He needs their votes for a county commission race. So I hope only that Judge Cox is listening to this meeting. Because Judge Cox, who is going to rule on this, needs to know that the board that's sitting there has absolutely no responsibility in their minds to outside ratepayers. The idea that you would reject out of hand before even looking at it, the proposal from Indian River Shores is like the Titanic and making sure that nobody gets in the lifeboats because there aren't enough room in the lifeboats. You got to make the people in the lifeboats get back in the Titanic because you don't want a dual source. But I'll tell you this, if it comes down to that the Indian River County or Vero Beach residents have to pay more, you know what? They had a choice. People in Indian River Shores didn't have a choice. The people in Vero Beach had a choice, and they voted for you. Right? So if elections have consequences, and even though you're nice people, you're pleasant, if you want to talk about bees, you're the greatest guy in the world to talk about bees with. But elections have consequences. They elected the 3 of you. You killed the FP&L sale. If they have higher rates, it's their own fault.
Next comment, please.
Good morning. Laura Moss, a Vero Beach Utilities Commission member at large. If Mrs. Brunges deems it appropriate, I would like to invite her to attend the next Utilities Commission meeting. I think it would be very helpful to hear from her directly. I would appreciate the opportunity to hear from her directly, and I think the other members of the Commission would also appreciate that opportunity. The next meeting, I believe, is that August 31st?
August 31st.
At 9 a.m. So I would extend that invitation to her to have her name placed on the agenda.
I think that's totally appropriate.
Okay, sounds good. And I also would like to...
Simpatico. I mean, that's fine.
Okay, good. I also would like to thank Mr. Orwater, my fellow Utilities Commission member, for requesting the documents a little bit earlier. They generally do run a bit late, so I thank you for bringing that up, and hopefully we'll have them earlier. Right, Attorney Wright?
As soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Next gentleman.
Good morning. Jeff Thompson, 2327 Seville Avenue. First of all, for years I've been in favor of the complete sale. Bottom line. Second, I'm certainly in favor of the shore sale. Third, with this deal that is brought forth, there was a phrase that was mumbled in Washington, we got to pass it to find out what's in it. Voting on something in 13 days it doesn't give time for proper analysis. I'm not the type of person that can analyze these things, but there's a lot of people out here in the audience that are really smart, that we need to give the citizens a chance to vet this thing properly instead of rushing something through. Also, and I haven't looked at this thing a bit, and I just want to make sure there's an exit strategy. Seems like we got a hard time getting out of things that we get into. I'm not sure about that. And fourth, and my final comment is, a couple of y'all were elected to do my item number 1 was to sell Florida Power and Light, the city of Vero Beach Electric, and get out of this. And it hadn't happened. It's going to happen, one way or the other. Thank you.
Come forward, sir.
Daniel Formont, 226 Megan's Ocean Walk. I live South County. I wish I was in Indian River Shores because maybe there would be some light at the end of the tunnel sooner than for the rest of us. But again, probably repeating what everybody has said before me here. You have two wrongs here. You have representation without election as far as people out in the county, majority of us ratepayers for the utilities. And you have a monopoly, unregulated monopoly, that allows you to charge whatever you can, and you can surcharge that $5 million or so that you think you deserve because you want the return on investment. Although you are not a private enterprise, you are a public enterprise, and I don't think that's fair for the rest of the county people to pay taxes in the cities if we're not able to vote. So it's a very unfair situation. And you really need to get out of the electric business. Now, you're renegotiating. As Jeff said, I would be with him. I'm not up to speed on that. But again, just from the outside, if you have a contract that's not very good, I don't see how you're going to have a very good position to negotiate a better position with OUC. You just need to get out of the electric business. And all this talk and with no solution is very frustrating. But with the shores, if there is something that is coming that could be resolving the situation for them, I think that would be all better for them. And maybe after that, there would be a way to find a solution to get rid of, to sell to Florida Point Light the rest of the utility and the rest of the county. But that's how we feel outside of Vero Beach city limits. Thank you.
All right. Further comment by the public?
I just have one question for Chef, if that's okay.
That's absolutely perfect.
This OUC agreement that we've got, the basis of it is from the November 25th terms last year? Is where a lot of this is
That's the
coming
basis. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But I mean, that's where the basis for this new deal is coming from.
That's the basis. The prices are lower than the November 25th. And
Okay,
plus, there's a tweak in the demand calculation that saves us a significant amount of money.
Okay.
As compared to the November 25th.
But a lot of the terms
offer.
have come from that agreement.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they've been available to the public?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
The term sheet's available to the public. I gave Ms. Wixon a copy earlier, and I have run out. I got one left to give to my friend,
I just
Mr.
want to make
Bryan.
sure that we get the terms as they come.
Yes, sir.
And as far as the FP&L deal, we gotten any terms or any kind of financial analysis on that? No?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question. We got the letter from FPL, and that's
we're
all.
being pressed to accept a partial sale with Indian River Shores with no financial analysis, and yet we've had financial analysis on this stuff coming back November 25th of last year. And I'm just trying to see where the disconnect is there.
All I can tell you is that I've been working very hard and very busy. It may exist, but I have not seen financial analysis of the FPL offer. As I said earlier, we're committed to sit down with FPL and talk through their view of the economics of the Shores offer and our potential view based on our analysis of what the impacts on all of our remaining customers would be.
Well, I look forward to seeing those when they become available.
Yes, sir.
Further questions for Mr. Wright? Okay, well, I'll close public comment then.
Take a break?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. We'll take a break and then we'll come back to you. We have to decide what to do, one way or the other.